It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item will be roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Davis, Gerke,
Here.
Graves,
Here.
Hale.
Here. Say the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone that's comfortable with, can take a moment of silence. We'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Everyone's had a chance to look over the minutes from the previous meeting. If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as presented. That's the visitors. We have Faith Venus, Daniel from Joint Communications, and Christian from Mikey. There's no public comments sent in, so we'll move right on to the insurance renewal. Okay, very good.
Good evening, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to come visit with you all every year. I've got two different sets of information to hand out to you. Got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, it really kind of is. So I'm going to hand these out. Don't look at them. We'll look at this other thing first. Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. Thank you. One of each. So while Jamie's handing those out, she reached out to us early, like she does every year, preparing for her budget. This year, we were drugged down to the wire. So we had given her a preliminary number of 10% for the insurance renewal when we knew nothing. We had no idea how things were going to play out. The reason it came down to the wire, we didn't get the numbers from the company until the middle or late of the last week, is because behind the scenes, the company is changing the underwriting carrier, which means for the future. So the current company is underwritten by a company named Allied World. They're going away and we're getting a new company. The name hasn't been released yet, but they've got 25 years of experience in fire, EMS, municipal, and we're really excited about the future. This year, you won't notice any changes. It's going to look and feel a lot the same as what you've had the last few years. The reinsurance company is the new company, but in 2024, it'll be a full-blown new program. The coverages will probably be a lot the same. The proposals and the policy language will be a little bit different, but we think it's going to be a positive thing. So I wanted to preempt that Jamie had asked for information. We gave her the best information that we had. It wasn't exactly accurate, but I think we'll work through here and hopefully provide some good information for you. So you've got 3 different proposals there. You've got the package, which is, okay, so the one you've got is I'm going to hold that up for everybody to look at. That's the crime policy. That's for the theft of money and all that good stuff. Then the next one with the blue coloring, that's your cyber liability policy. And then the one with the fire helmet on the front of it, that's your Provident. That's what we call the package. So the package portion is for the buildings, the liability, the ambulances. The cyber is the cyber attacks, that type of thing. And then again, the crime would be like embezzlement, theft of money, that type of stuff. So I'm going to hand out something that you'll be much happier to look at. We've started putting together these spreadsheets rather than have people flip through all those pages. And this is a little easier. It's a snapshot, a little easier to look at.
You have one?
Got my notes, yeah. So there's two primary things that impact your premium. There's rate, which none of us like, and there's exposure. And when I say exposure, that means you've increased the buildings, you've added new equipment, you've added a vehicle, your exposure has changed. So I want to start at the very top of the spreadsheet, and you'll see the first column, well, the very far left column tells you what it is. The next column in the middle is the renewal numbers that we're looking at. And the far right side is what you're coming off of, the expiring. So if you look at the property premium up at the top, it increased $9,429, but the property value has increased $653,737. The company did that because of the inflation of the buildings, not just yours, but everybody's. We all have heard about how much it costs to build anymore. So they looked at evaluation and felt like 2.7 million wasn't enough to replace your buildings. And if you'll remember, over the years we've talked about this, this program is unique because they have guaranteed replacement costs. So they're requiring us to increase it to $3,446,000. But if at the time of loss we have a $5 million claim, they're going to pay $5 million. It's guaranteed replacement costs. It's very rare in the marketplace. But in order to do that, they have to charge an adequate premium for an adequate rate. And they felt like 2.7 million wasn't enough. They weren't paying our share for the guaranteed replacement costs. And if anybody wants to look at that more, they said they went off square footages. I actually asked them for the evaluation. They said it's proprietary, they can't share it, but if you guys want to look at the square footages that we've got, that's included in your proposal with the fire department element. We can go through and look at the square footages, and if the square footages are off, we can go back and do another evaluation if we need to. The property and the auto are going to be the places for the biggest change, but let's go down to the inland marine. So the inland marine stayed the same. Inland marines are your portable equipment. It's the actual cot portion of your power unit, your power cots. All the disposable items that go in there, any of your monitors and things that come in and out of the ambulances. That's all of your portable equipment. The general liability, you can see the premium, the coverage is all the same, the liability limits, but the premium went up very slightly. In spite, I think we had more runs. We've got a few more full-times and a few more part-times than we did last year that would typically generate additional premium, but it stayed pretty constant. The public officials and EPLI coverage. So the public officials is decisions you guys make here. EPLI is the wrongful hiring, firing, sexual harassment, discrimination, all that fun stuff. You can see the premium stayed pretty stable there. The excess liability, the premium stayed stable. And then you get down to the auto portion and it took a pretty good jump. Well, of that difference, $7,037 of that is a brand new ambulance that we put on. We have a 2022 EF450 ambulance that we put on that's generating $7,000 a year for liability and physical damage. So when you look at the total increase, the 153,732 down there at the bottom on the expiring is what you would have paid last year had we had that ambulance on for the whole year. We didn't. We added it in August and you paid $2,300 from August till January 1st. But if it would have been on the whole year, that's what the premium would have looked like. And then you can see your renewal premium of $173,758. So that is $20,000 and a few dollars. Of that, $16,466 is exposure. The other 3,000 and some change is rate. Part of that is coming out of the physical damage on the autos. So I went through, anytime I see a rate increase, we're going through fine tooth comb. Like we're spending your money like it's our own, actually better than our own. We're trying to help you all spend your money as frugally as you possibly can without giving up coverage or exposing the district. So I went through and I noticed that the changes, not only the new ambulance, but the changes that I saw in the pricing was in the physical damage. And if you guys, has anybody hit a deer here lately? We had one at our office. We have a gal that hit a deer. I looked at it and thought, oh, that's a $10,000 claim, $20,000. Because of the sensors, the LED lights, the adaptive cruise, all that stuff in there. I can show you the picture. You look at it, you're like, no way, that's 20 grand. It's $20,000. And when we hit, like even raccoons will cost you several $1,000s. And when those cars are down right now, they're not getting right back up. So they're down for a while because we're having trouble with parts, which means that our rental expenses are going up. So it's just driving costs up. If you go to the next page, this is going to be your employee dishonesty. You'll see the pricing actually came down a few dollars, which was surprising. And then on the cyber liability, last year it was $2,884. This year it's $3,050. We've been seeing those double. We've been seeing renewal premiums come back double. So we were pretty pleased to see that it only came back a couple $100 higher. How do you all like this format? A little easier to digest. There weren't any major changes. The liability limits are all the same that they've been forever. The biggest change is in the property limits. We had to increase the building values and the audit. That's where the biggest changes came from. So I told you at the very beginning, we had estimated without knowing a thing with Jamie, 10%. When you look at the 153,732 compared to the 173,758, that's 13%. So we were close. I'd love it to be flat, but that doesn't happen very often. And especially when we're talking exposure, you're getting more value for the money that you're spending. You're spending money, but you're getting more for it. It's not just purely rate. That's what people hate. When you just get, well, they hate it all. Let's be honest, right? We hate it all. But when it's just purely a rate increase and you're not getting any more value for your money, those are the ones that are really hard. But when we can explain why the premium's going up, because there's more, you're getting more for your money. Any questions about this?
I have two.
Okay.
Earthquake, explain to me 5%, what's covered, what's not, and is there a rider available?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because in that property, like you may look at the values and say, well, that premium looks high. It does look high because you're paying for full flood, full earthquake. That also includes the portable equipment at $850,000. And there, I'll get to your question here in just a second. And there's $1 million of, it's a blanket limit for business income, extra expense, computer coverage. So to answer your question specifically, the 5% is your deductible.
That's the deduction.
And it would be the deductible of that $3 million. So you have a $150,000 deductible.
So we do have earthquake coverage.
Yes.
All right, second page, cyber coverage limits. Is that limited just to our loss or does that cover possible lawsuits resulting from?
It does.
And $1 million isn't going to go very far there, is that our deductible?
Nope, that's $1 million in coverage. So if you want to go look at the blue one. There you go.
Yeah.
Shows you network and information security liability of $1 million, regulatory defense and penalties of $1 million, PCI fines and assessments of $1 million. The PCI would be payment card, so credit card of some kind, if you have that. And these things are all built together.
So people's medical information gets out and they sue, that's not. part
So
of
let's
that.
see, there should be a piece on here that talks about. Some of them do specifically mention HIPAA
That's what I was thinking,
fines and
because
penalties.
that, if that ends up in a hurry, if you lose a whole load of HIPAA information.
Let me get back to you on that. I'm not seeing it spell it out. Some of the companies do spell it out very specifically. It could be. It's just they haven't posted it.
Okay. Well, thank
I will,
you.
let me check on that and I will get back to you. Any other questions or concerns? Mr. Brown looks like he wants to say something.
No, I'm fine.
Coming into the meeting tonight, I didn't know what your reaction would be to a 13% increase, knowing that the majority of that's coming out of exposure. I don't know if we could bring back alternate terms by December 13th, but we could try if that's something that you guys are interested in. I know we've done that in the past, and every time we've gone through and done an assessment, we found one company that was less expensive, but they didn't meet bid specs. That's the state pool mow firm. And it's quite a bit different. It was less expensive, but it's quite a bit different. You'd have to give up a lot of the enhancements. I've got a couple other companies that I've been reaching out to. I told Jamie that today, that I've reached out to. I think we need to go through the remarketing process. And we've done it back in 2019. We've maybe looked at it in between. But we want to do that internally. Whether you guys go out for public bid or not, that's up to you, but we are going to do that internally for you and bring back options just to make sure that it's healthy to do. It can make sure we're keeping our current company in line. I know you hate to do that, but it's part of the industry. If there aren't any other questions, then I would present this for your approval, this renewal for your approval.
I just have it this afternoon. I mean.
What is the date that our current coverage expires?
January 1st.
So would you rather we approve that next meeting?
That's up to you guys. I mean, it's all the same.
Basically all the same coverage.
It's the increase that we don't have any choice over.
Right.
So
We
unless you guys want to see what's available marketing wise.
We could reach out, we could go to that same company that's got less coverage. If you're looking, like, if it's not in the budget to buy a product like this, and we have to try to find a way to save money, that might be an option. I've got two other companies that we reached out to today. I have no idea where they're gonna come out. This is the company we've got confidence in. This is the one that we've been using since 2017. They've been paying claims for us. We had a slow claim on that big ambulance. They got hung up at a shop and there was some miscommunication. But we got that resolved.
You see Mofirm being mostly the smaller districts with significantly less access.
Smaller or distressed.
Yeah.
If they've had a lot of claims and they can't go anywhere else. We've got a big account right now. It's a large fire district. Nobody will take it.
Pare it down.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's all they got. So it will meet your basic needs. But this thing, what you have, it is the best coverage you can buy. There are a handful of companies, VFIS, you maybe heard of, you maybe been with them before. We've been seeing them take 20% increases for the last few years, just trying to catch up. The industry got so we have a soft and a hard market, is what they call it. It kind of follows the stock market. The insurance companies can make money in the stock market. They don't have to make as much money off of the, the premiums, so they can get a little more aggressive. When the stock market, they aren't making money, they've got to make more money on the premiums to offset the losses. So we are in what they call a hard market at the moment. For the last 20 years or more, it's been a soft market where everybody's just beating each other up and just trying to have a race to the bottom, which has been good. But now things are coming back up to where they probably should have been for years. Yes, sir.
Given all facets of exposure and insurance, are there any steps that we can take that would reduce the rate, such as when you put a security system in your home, you get X off or whatever? Are there any steps that obvious that we could take that would reduce our rate?
There's So a sprinkler system in a building will help with the rating of the building. I don't know all the buildings off the top of my head that have sprinklers, this one obviously that doesn't, but yeah. So there is a different rating system for that, but if you were to put a upgraded security system here and it cost you $5,000, I wouldn't.
I just threw that out as a,
Yeah.
for instance, for homeowners, that I didn't know what, anything we can do with our ambulances that would reduce our, or anything with
So we looked at the deductibles
bookkeeping
before.
secure, cybersecurity or anything.
We've looked at the deductibles on the autos before. We also looked at the deductibles on the property, and we did like a, I can't remember if it was a 5 or a 10-year pro forma. Do you remember?
I don't remember, but.
It was either a 5 or a
Makes
10,
sense.
a 5 or a 10-year look back. And we looked at different types of, you had like a $1,000 property deductible. We looked at going to a 5,000 and the claims that you've had over the last 5 years, on a 5-year look back. And it just didn't make sense. Like the company wasn't willing to give a big enough discount for you to go from 1,000 to 5,000, means you're taking on 4,000 more risk. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense on the autos either. I mean, I would love for it to make sense for you, but when you look at the hard numbers, I've got that stuff in here too. But, we've got a gal that works for us. We're very privileged. I'm fair with numbers. She's a CPA. She's a whiz at numbers like Jamie. And she sent some stuff over to Jamie. And I think it was in the right format that Jamie could understand. If I would have put together, she wouldn't have liked it as much.
But there's nothing obvious that we've not taken advantage.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't think so.
There was a district to the south of us that E450s, it's really hard to find brush cards for. Warsaw, there's deer everywhere down there, so it was financially, they were incentivized because they were constantly, replacing front quarter fence and whatnot. We looked at the cost here, and we don't spend nearly as much on repairs from any deer as we would on those bumpers because they're custom made. But over time, I don't know, are you seeing any? is that
Absolutely. If they make a bumper that will deflect the deer, I would absolutely, when we look at your loss runs, there's a handful of deer hits in there, and every time we hit one, I think there's one in here for hit deer. That one wasn't terrible, 3,900. Hit raccoon, 2,400. Must have been a big raccoon. Hit deer, 5,900. So if we can spend 1,200 on a, is that what they cost?
They're twice.
Oh,
They're very expensive. And that was the thing, is they were just cost prohibitive last time we looked at, but I didn't know how much.
yes, that was,
Offset, so.
that would be something if you can start investing, maybe not put the whole fleet in those, but if you could start, and that'd be ideal if you just had surplus. But if you could start investing in those, and I don't know, are they very vehicle specific or are they kind of universal?
As long as the trucks last, it's nobody knows if they go on the next chassis. I mean, there's not a lot of change in those chassis, but. there's no way to guarantee it. So,
Hickory County, St. Clair County, they invested in that. So St. Clair County is a client of ours, Hickory County is a client of ours, and Benton County is a client of ours. And as you can imagine, their loss runs, they've got a lot of hit deer. It's terrible. I don't know how it's ever going to change unless the conservation changes how they deal with deer permits along major thoroughfares, which I don't think they'll ever do because deer travel so far. But
it's not out there.
yeah,
Well, notice the highway department stopped picking the carcasses up. Maybe that's for public awareness. Maybe it's because they can't afford to send 3 guys in a truck to pick up a dead deer.
how would you all like to proceed from here?
Is there a motion to accept this proposal?
I would make that motion.
So second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We appreciate your business. And we will start the remarket process in September next year. And we'll go out to all available companies and bring you guys back some options. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Joint communications budget presentation.
Good evening. Thank you guys for having me here tonight. It's been a little bit since I've been here, so I wanted to give everyone kind of an overview of what we've done over the last year. This is not a calendar year overview, but rather just a 12-month look back for activity. So for our overall activity, this is actually ran October to October. We have 83,774 incoming calls. That's both emergency and non-emergency activity. We have just over 20,000 outgoing calls. Those are going to be requests from field units stemming from something that they're handling, that they're going to need us to handle, whether it be calling for a helicopter or for additional units to come in from other agencies or for tow trucks for accidents. And then we have just over 31,000 field activity events for the year. With our telephonic activity of 83,774, just an interesting fact, that breaks down to every person in Pettis County calling for our services almost twice a year. That does not include the thousands of initial entries that we make into mules or NCIC for persons, vehicles, or property, nor does it include their ongoing monthly validations. For call classifications, where our calls are coming from, this is just for 911 calls. The administrative lines we don't carry breakdown information on, but the majority of our calls are coming from wireless phase 2 callers. And yes, there is one payphone in Pettis County. There is a payphone line that is piped into the old Beans building. And whenever it rains, it calls 911. There's no phone attached to it, but it will call 911. As far as our answer times, NENA, the National Emergency Number Association, has a call answering standard of 5 seconds for a 911 line and 10 seconds for an administrative line. Locally, we have an average answer time of 4.1 seconds and for 911 calls, and we have 5.1 seconds for administrative calls. In the last 12 months, we've had 12 calls that did not meet standard. That's total. Locally, we have a 96% answer rate within 10 seconds. This year, we had a mid-year pay scale adjustments. Where we're currently sitting, Pettis County has a wage of $18.69 an hour. That's up considerably from the previous year. I do want to thank you for your support in helping us get that pushed through. It is greatly appreciated. Since we have initiated the new pay scale, we are currently within one position of being staffed. We have a couple of conditional offers out and a couple new people onboarding within the next couple of weeks. So we have one open position at this point. The industry as a whole is experiencing a 30% vacancy rate, so that is pretty significant that we're that close to being where we need to be. As far as our budget timeline, the budget that I'll be presenting this evening was originally presented to the advisory board in September of this year for review, and it was provided approval from the advisory board on October 19th. The preliminary presentation to the city of Sedalia on November 7th, the county commission on November 18th, and then this evening with the ambulance district. We're expecting confirmation with the auditor and the county as a whole later in December, with final confirmation January 3rd. You have an overall budget in front of you this evening. We're going to be looking at some itemized expenditures. The base stations that we are replacing, or that I would like to replace this coming year, are replacing the final stations that have been carried over from the Sedalia Police Department. They were aged whenever they were carried over into the new center. They are creating some volume issues and some interference with communication. So I would like to replace those at some point. So that's why they're included here. It was on the initial plan carried over from last year that I would replace half of them from the Sedalia PD this year, and then half of them next year. The new equipment that we're looking at for 2023, we have a CAD interface with Mindbase. Mindbase is something that is also included on the contractual expenses line item. Mindbase is a CAD interface that will track the severity of the trauma that dispatchers and operators are exposed to, so that we can keep an eye on the stress levels that they could be experiencing. I've also budgeted for the pulse point interface. However, there is discussion that that may not happen, but I would like to include it just in case if it does come up. I have included headset replacements. The headsets that we're currently using are 2 years old, all of them, and eventually they will wear out. The price in front of you is for all new headsets around, just in case I do have to replace them all. And I've also included a contingency for the just in case. Office supplies and equipment repair, I have a total budget item of $10,000. The equipment repair is primarily focusing on our desk repair. The desks that we have within Joint Communications were obtained for free, donated to us from another agency as they were remodeling. They sat for several years before they were installed, so they are aged. Since we have started using them, the motors that make them lift up and down to the user's comfort level and their own individual height and what they need to operate comfortably, 4 of them have gone out. We are looking at the replacement or repair of the motor. If we are unable to repair or replace the motor, the entire desk will have to be replaced. The building and maintenance crew with the county systems have identified desks that they can pull out and push right back in, same measurements, everything, for approximately $1,800 a desk. That is not what I want to do. I would like to repair, replace the motors that I've got, or shuffle the ones that are working into the appropriate stations that are being used the most, and just replace the ones that we absolutely have to replace if we have to. The expenditures for training, the certification cost in front of you, each dispatcher is $1,095 to give them the state certifications that they need to do their job. I have budgeted for 9 certifications this year. Hopefully, I will not have to use them. The skills lab item in front of you is an interactive artificial intelligence skills lab. It is a service that provides call taking procedure training without a live caller. Legal Sciences and APCO, those are 2 services that provide continuing education that are compliant with the state of Missouri requirements. And the supervisor and CTO training are 2 line items that would be needed going into the next couple years because we have had some turnover in both trainers and supervisors. Expenditures for telephone. One of the most expensive aspects of running a 911 center, telephone and data. The numbers that you see in front of you are taken from the 2022 monthly costs. The 911 line item is the camera trunks. That is the cost associated with just running the 911 lines into the center. The same for the administrative lines. The mules line item is the Missouri Uniform Law Enforcement System that we contract with the city of Sedalia. We actually split that cost with them. They have the line coming into the city of Sedalia and they pay for half of it, we pay for half of it. Data is our fiber line. Language line is the online telephone interpreter services that we provide to the county. That is an estimate. Some months it may be $30, other months it may be $120, but that's an average of $100 a month. Otelco and Windstream are two providers that tunnel calls from various portions of the county into our center. Those are two line items that are required to have as part of the 911 system. Windstream is specifically the Greenridge, Windsor area, and Otelco is the Houstonia and Hughesville area. They integrate directly into the AT&T system. As far as contractual services, this is everything that 911 has entered into contractually for 2023. There is an additional line item at the bottom below because I didn't want to put a slide in here for one line item, which includes the county insurance policy and the 911 portion of that. Do you have any questions over any of the contractual services?
Can we back up to telephone and data?
Yes.
That 911, that number up there that's an annual cost?
That is an annual cost. Yes, that is for all 5 trunk lines coming into the center. By MENA standards, we are required to have 5 trunk lines to serve our population. Any other questions?
What is the wood used to?
Okay, that is our radio system. That is the payment on the radio system that we have. It is a 10-year payment. It is an annual payment made February of every year. The priority dispatch contractual line item is for our ProQA services and the call handling software. CallWorks is the telephone system for handling. Mindbase is the interface that works with CAD to monitor the stress levels of our operators. Mindbase is in its infancy in getting that up and running. We have a screen recording option in that we can record how our operators are using the systems in front of them. Critical is our online testing services. And Tyler is for our computer-aided dispatch. Our miscellaneous expenditures anticipated for 2023. Part of the original plan for joint communications was to build a quiet room. So far, that's nothing has taken place with that endeavor yet. That is something that I would like to see completed in 2023. There is space, it's ready.
Describe the quiet room to me, please.
All right, a quiet room is a effort within the industry to provide a place away from the ringing telephones, to provide a place from the stress and the trauma that an operator may be exposed to. Some of the calls that they take are very difficult. Some of the shifts that they work are very difficult. And providing them an opportunity to step away for a few minutes can do a lot for them. And that's the purpose of the quiet room. It contains pretty much a place to sit, maybe a light. I know that the team is very excited about having a place to step away for a minute. All of the uniforms that we are currently using within Joint Communications are 2 years old. And I have started to hear that they're shrinking. I don't know. They tell me the dryers are making them shrink. I'm also looking forward to planning events for Telecommunications Week, and I am incorporating new hire personality assessments. I have a company that is providing personality assessments specialized in public safety, law enforcement, corrections, and criminal justice employments, and they focus with the big 5 personality factors. Any questions over miscellaneous?
You know the name of the new hire personnel?
Krita Hire. It's the
CDR.
same as the Krita Call, but it's Krita Hire. They use the big 5 for their personality assessments, and they're very interesting. I've got sample results. If you want to look at them. Our expenditures for wage and benefits. This is one of our biggest line items, if not the biggest. It takes up 74% of our total expenses, which is actually just slightly below agencies of comparable system use and volume. A lot of agencies around us will push the 78 to 80% for their overall budget. We have 2 administrative positions. One is not filled. We have 11 dispatchers and 2 mules clerks.
How many dispatchers? I'm sorry. How many dispatchers?
11. We have, lost my train of thought.
You were at 2 mules clerks.
Yes, 2 mules clerks. Our mules clerks are an effort to shift some of the administrative work that the dispatchers were traditionally working with. I mentioned the thousands of entries that we are required to enter to mules. For example, the city of Sedalia recently worked a code enforcement initiative where they towed 120 cars. All 120 cars are required to be entered into mules. One entry can take 30 minutes. And that's just one.
Why is that?
Why does it take 30 minutes? Because we have to run all of the preliminary checks through the Department of Revenue, the law enforcement system, as well as NCIC. We have to compare that to the source validation information that is coming to us from the officer, making sure that it matches everything. And then you have to take the time to enter the masks and file the paperwork.
Glad Amazon just use that system.
It is very time intensive, and that's just a
A
total.
lot of opportunity for errors there, isn't there?
There can be, yes. And with the high call volume that the operators experience, it's very stressful to have 120 towed cars sitting on your desk that you need to enter, stop and do CPR. And then you have to go back to, oh, where was I on this car? And that's not even counting the warrants that we get on a daily basis. So we do offer a shift differential for anyone that is assigned to night shift, which is starting at 6 p.m. for 30 days or more. We are one of the few agencies around us that do offer the shift differential, and our operators are very appreciative of that. The original budget that was presented to the advisory board as well as the city of Sedalia did not have the updated healthcare costs on this. This has the true healthcare costs. So our portion of that is $697.31 per person. Any questions over wage and benefits? Yes.
So you said you have one open position.
Yes.
What position is that?
That would be the manager position.
And that's a new position.
Yes.
What was the raise that was given this year?
Is it 15%? It moved the starting wage from $15.50 to $18.69.
I do have a raise proposed in here.
No, I am retaining the pay scale that was approved in mid-year of 2022, carrying that over into 23.
How many hours a week average to dispatch work?
We follow the X and Y rotation. After the 2 that are in training right now are anticipated to be out of training the end of December, then they are going to be working 36 hours one week, 48 hours the next week.
So how do you control your overtime? How do you estimate that?
That is a very difficult question.
That can only increase this number, right?
Yes, the overtime would increase the number. I was instructed in the original budget for 2020 to take overtime out of open positions. And that I did not have to line item that.
The way you, 36 and 48 is 4 hours of overtime, eight hours of overtime per month per person, right?
Yes,
And that's time inch and a half, so yeah, significant. All right.
16 per person.
4 weeks at 2 weeks or 48, 2 and 36.
If they do 36, they're under 1 week, and they do 48 the next week, they're over 4.
It's over 40. It's in-
Oh, they can't, anything over 40, okay, I'm with you. Okay. We pay holiday differential and stuff like that too.
there is no holiday differential, but they do receive holiday pay. The holiday pay is included in this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about wage and benefits? With the current revenues and no change to the expenditures as presented, we would be projected to close 2023 negative $86,864 with no change in revenues. For 2023, I am proposing to lower the statewide prepaid tax amount from the 2022 anticipated amount to 27.5. The reason why I am asking for it to be reduced in consideration is because it has not been performing the way that it was originally anticipated. The offset from the any device fee has taken care of that for the most part. I don't want to continue to bank on that. So I am proposing to leave the any device fee at the current value of $505, reduce the statewide, and increase the contributions of the providing entities from the County of Pettis, City of Sedalia, and Pettis County Ambulance District by $40,000. That would give us a projected end of year at $10,635.83 with no change in the expenditures as presented. I know that this is a considerable increase. However, there was no increase from 2020. There was no increase in 2021.
Can I ask you some questions?
Yes,
So on the balance forward, how did you calculate that?
that was calculated in September when we were working through the original draft of the budgets. And that was taken with the anticipated revenues from the city of Sedalia, Pettis County Ambulance District, as well as the anticipated averages of $32,000 and $32,305 per month from that time frame, and any known outstanding invoices and known expenses at that time, and an average salary cost of $50,000 per pay period. And at that time, I had 7 pay periods left.
So in that balance carry forward, the county has not paid their 200,000, so that's not in that number. So when you look at the budget report you gave me, the county hasn't paid their 200,000 yet, so that should be at least 200,000 more.
Okay.
So that was just my question, why that wasn't in there.
I can take that back to Kim and ask her, because when I called for the cash on hand and my outstanding amounts to start taking my bills out of, she gave me the amounts that I had on hand.
Right, which did include the county.
Okay.
So that should be probably 200,000. Can we go back to the wages? So I'm confused on the manager.
Okay.
What's the manager's job responsibilities going to be versus like what your responsibilities are?
Okay, so we have discovered that my position is tasked with a lot of administrative tasks that are proving very difficult to accommodate. The job description of the manager as it's currently written is that that person would be responsible for overseeing trainees and the trainers and the activities associated with them, maintaining the training manuals, maintaining that the training that we are working with is actually being utilized, and look for any areas of improvements. Additionally, there is the plan that that person would alternate on call or rotating that need with myself. Right now, there's not a person that I could task that with.
Is that an hourly position salary?
It is budgeted as an hourly position at $22 an hour.
So you're the only salaried employee
That is correct.
in the system?
Do the meals, they just work 4 hours?
Correct. Any other questions?
Well, questions, I believe we will table this until we get further into our budget discussions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to officers' reports, chief's reports.
My stack, they're looking at it for a moment. Okay. I had a little sickness last week, plus we had some time off for Veterans Day, so I don't have a lot for the board tonight. Just a quick reminder, we will be out of the office Thursday for Thanksgiving this week. I'm working with Tricia Reuter right now, who's the Pettis County EMA director, about doing some nerve agent training as well as organophosphate training for the non-farmers. Those are very big. They're farm chemicals that are used all throughout the state. And as you know, we host one of the ChemPack sites. So all the antidotes for things like that are stored out there. So we're trying to get all of the agencies who could potentially be involved and work through some contingencies like train derailments and who can actually get to the items should they need be worst case scenario. So I plan on involving the law enforcement agencies as well as both fire agencies, city and county, I should say, in that discussion. So I'd say we've got the fundamentals right now. If worst case scenario, something happens, dispatch knows how to get in there, just the really basics, but we want to work through some of the finer details because there's not another cache of that stuff until you get into the Kansas City metro area. So we're out here in a place where we probably have the most risk for organophosphate. So that's important stuff. I'm happy to work with Trish on that. She's put together some good stuff on that already. And I'll keep you posted with anything else on that. As far as employment, we did interviews. We had some interviews done. We were still doing last time that the board met. At this point, we have offers out for 2 full-time employees. Both of those are already PRN and working quite a bit of hours already. So it's not really going to be any change other than benefits for them. Assuming they both accept. I don't know if we've actually got any acceptance letters or acceptance officially from them, but I don't look for any issues there. And then we're looking at 2 new PRN staff that have been offered just part-time positions. Those are all EMT positions, no paramedics. The part of the push for that is replacing some of the folks we've lost lately. And also we will be able, I think I mentioned before, we'll be able to split. If we have a paramedic working on the same truck, somebody calls in, we don't have to bring anybody else in. We can find one that we can use one of those EMTs to come in and make our trucks stay in service and stay functional. Actually, that's it. And everything else I have is for another point.
Are there any questions for Eric? No, we move on to CFO report.
All right, you guys are gonna get tired of me after we get through it all. I don't know how many pages we got here, 60. We
That's
won't
why
go
I
through
went
every one of them each year. We'll skip some stuff. So page 3 is our sales tax. Year to date, we are at $3,419,494.45. That is about 5.69% over last year at the same time, and 184,000 over last year. And you can see there that ebb and flow that continues to happen with our sales tax. So this is a bigger one because it was at the end of the quarter, basically. So the businesses that only file quarterly, all file at that point. Any questions on any of that? All right, page 4 is our budget performance summary year to date. I feel like a broken record when we go through this every month. It's the same things every month. So operating revenues are still 11% over budget year to date. We still have our same problem children that we've had all year as far as over budget, ambulance operations, repairs and maintenance, and utilities. Employees still looks good at year to date, and overall expenses are under budget. Any questions on any of that?
The repair and maintenance, why is that number so?
Oh, there's so many reasons. So like for this building, we had to replace an air conditioner, the HVAC. That was like $3,800. So that was not budgeted for. That through this one way out of whack. Snow removal was a big piece of all 3 locations, but really 2. We don't really have snow removal here.
The other HVAC repair station 2.
Yeah, we had an HVAC repair station 2. I'd have to go back through the repairs and maintenance, but it's just not been a good year.
And that's all on buildings, that's not on equipment.
Yeah, that's not equipment. That's all, stuff in the buildings. Sheet rock repairs, painting, those kinds of things. And they've all just been minor things.
So
Nothing huge except for the HVAC.
let's back up to the 13,750 that was budgeted. How did we come up with that number? What did we take into account? How do we construct a forward-looking number for repairs and maintenance?
So I usually look at what we've done in the previous year, and then anything that we know we're going to do. So that's where I budget from what we've
No.
done in the past, and we hadn't had any of that. So going forward for next year, I've increased it for all buildings because they're all aging. They're all gonna need things. What they're gonna need, I don't know.
Well, we
I'm
have
sure
new
they're gonna need-
gutters and new windows over there, so that.
Yeah, that was a lot of
Was
it
that in
there.
this?
So the gutters were the, I believe the windows were, because those were capital. Something, the ramps, we put ramps, and a lot of it is bay doors. We have a lot of repairs on our bay doors for whatever reason. They
I just wonder how you
Yeah.
even come up with a number for expected repairs. and
It's an educated guess,
Okay,
but which is a lot of what budgeting is. Look in the past and try to see the future. Any other questions on that? So the details are pages 5 through 8 of the same things. You can see the fuel, vehicle maintenance, equipment maintenance. CPA fees that changed after the budget, so that's just an item that needs the budget to come in before. And then, like we just talked about, the overages there. So the main building, actually, we're just slightly under budget, we'll probably be right on budget, it's Highway 2 and the education building. And you can see here, it's $3,400, the HVAC was $3,800, so that's what threw this one off, so. Any other questions on this? Page 9 is our capital expenses year to date. Big thing to look at since we're going into budget next meeting is that there's $1 million from this year that we haven't spent. That'll be pushed into next year. So something to keep in mind. Page 10 is the balance sheet previous year comparison. Just comparing our assets and liabilities this year versus last year, same time. Any questions on that? Page 12 is our profit and loss previous year comparison. Keep in mind at this point, revenue looks like it's up $1.1 million. We had that large repayment last year of $460,000. So those were actually from prior years, but it happened in 2021. So that's making this look a little like we have a lot more revenue than we did from last year. So expenses are up over last year as well. Around $50,000. Overall, we're still in a good net position this year versus last year. Any questions on that? Page 13 is our bank balances. Top half is this meeting versus the second meeting in October, up about 105,000. The bottom half is year over year. That is showing 1.4 million. But like I said, $1 million of that is budgeted to be spent. So page 14 is our cash reserve chart. Page 15 is our cash reserve analysis. We're sitting right at 6 months on our general checking account balance. And that's up just slightly over last month, same time. Pages 16 through 20 is the check register. I did make a slight change there just to maybe make that easier. Deposits and withdrawals instead of debits and credits. I don't know if that's helpful.
thank you.
But
Now you're talking my language.
well, this is for you, not for me, so if that helps you.
Yeah.
That's for us, so. Any questions on any of that?
Is the Windsor revenue stream maintaining its expected volume,
Are you, which portion?
the sales tax?
We haven't received any sales tax.
Any,
We have not received any sales tax. I don't know, even if they
do
sent
they
the
pay
stuff in.
that annually then, or?
No,
They don't pay
it takes a year for that easily get started for them.
Yeah, even
Okay.
if they sent it in, let's say they sent it the 1st of September, that will not start until January 1st. They
Okay.
won't collect for 2 months after that. So it's a long.
So how will that affect their budgeting for next year? It's a
Yes,
good
it's
question.
fine.
Right up there with repairs and maintenance. Question mark. All right.
Page 21 is the current bills due summary, and then the details are pages 22 through 23. Any questions? There's no questions. There's no those for approval.
Questions, I would take a motion to receive the CFO. Do we have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And I would take a motion to approve payment of outstanding bills.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Unfinished business, the GEMT, 6/30/2020.
Okay, so that starts on page 24. This is the adjusted report. So we submitted our report back in, I'm not sure when 2020 got submitted because there was a lot of delays there, but let's say they're due in November. So let's say they submitted November of 2021. The accounting firm here reviews it and they made some changes. So the biggest change that was made, which is the same thing as the 20 or the 19 GEMT adjusted, was they allowed billing. When we first started this, billing was not allowed to be a deduction or an expense associated with the GEMT because it was a percentage basis, but they changed that rule retroactively. So that's the biggest change on why it's changed. The other changes are on page 37. The bold items are the things that changed. So this is the only year that we've had an EMT class that is not allowed to have any expenses associated. So so they offset any expenses with the revenue. The other thing that gets offset is our special events revenue. We have to offset our expenses with that. The other few things, our board of directors expenses are disallowed. So with that change, it was about $119,000 change in expenses, which changed the net that we received by $55,000. So we already received a net of $142,000. It should be $197,000, so we'll receive another $55,000. I know there's a lot of information there. We're going to go right into 2022 report. So any questions or anything you guys saw you had a question on? So 2022, oh, you want to?
Yeah, we'll call for approval.
Okay, sorry.
I take a motion to approve that.
The amendment, to approve the.
Yeah,
So moved.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Now the GEMT 6/30/2022.
Okay, so 2022 starts on page 40. Oh. Nope, I'm sorry, that's still 21. Clearly, it starts on page 47. So just a reminder, this is a fiscal year other than our calendar year, so these amounts don't match any financial statements, which makes it a little bit more difficult when we do it, because our year is a calendar year, this is done on a fiscal year. So this is July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. So this is all of our expenses are on page 48 and 49. And you can see there the EMR, that's an emergency medical response expenses, and then non-EMR. So the non-EMR is board expenses and some administrative expenses that are just allowed. Page 50 is the calculation of the EMR response expense, which is everything other than basically board expenses. So if we turn to page 58, will be the revenues for that time period. And then page 60 is really where everything is calculated as far as what we get reimbursed. So you can see there that our grand total of ambulance expenses on page 60, line 7, is $6,863,725. If you look back at 2020, that number was $5,884,803. So right at $1 million more. 2 years later, so that's two periods. Another thing to look at is the only thing we get reimbursed for right now on GMT is our fee for service Medicaid. So that's just the straight Medicaid. There's also Medicaid that is managed care, and we don't get reimbursed for those calls. So if you look at these two reports, our fee for service number of calls went down about 120. And our managed care went up 96. So almost an exact inverse, not quite, but almost. I think they are trying to change that law so we get reimbursed for managed care as well, which will make a huge impact on us because we're still getting reimbursed the same on the managed care, but we're not able to recoup any of those expenses like we are for the fee for service.
Question for the chief. Page 60 there, line 9, average cost per ambulance transport.
Yep.
Is that 1093 figure set up or down, and how does that compare to other ambulance districts of our nature?
Actually, Jamie could probably answer that better than me. I hate to punt to you, but.
Yeah, it's up.
Yeah, it's up.
I
And
thought we were at 900 or something like that.
So we were last year.
Yeah.
If you look at the 2020, we were at 977.22.
Okay.
But for at June 30, 2022, it's $1,094.
How does that compare to other ambulance districts of our size?
I don't know.
Is that a number that's used by the government for anything? Is there
outside
an
of
incentive?
GMT,
This report right here.
and a lot of most of the services, I don't want to speak ill of them, but most of the services don't have a Jamie, so they don't have as accurate as an analysis on this GMT report.
Does that number reflect on our situation, our management, our all the above, or it really doesn't matter?
It just reflects on the expenses, costs for the year. So and this is not taking into account our capital this year. We just take depreciation as an expense here. So it's not our actual cash outlay for the year. It's just our expenses. So that is up. So this year, our net reimbursement will be $334,291.18. The net cost of transports, so we were paid $437,682 on these transports, but the expenses were $943,665. So what we get reimbursed is a portion of that. So the net cost is the $505,982. We first will pay the non-federal share to the state, $171,691. Then we'll be reimbursed the $505,982. So we will net the $334,291.
So using this formula, then buying a new ambulance is gonna increase our cost per trip.
Not by much, because it's just depreciation.
Yeah.
But yes, I saw. And you can see, if, looking back, the changes on the 2020, 120,000 worth of expense changed to about 55,000. So about 50%, and that's because we're being under reimbursed about 50%. So, and you asked if any other government agencies are going to use this. So for 2022, we have to report also to CMS or Medicare. They're not going to reimburse us anything,
Right.
but they're doing a study to figure out that our rates that we're being reimbursed are far under what our expenses are. So we're not really being reimbursed. We just get a percentage back, basically, of what it costs for every transport.
Okay.
And keep in mind on this per transport cost, there's also a cost of readiness there, and we're responding to lots of calls that we're not transporting. This is for transport.
Right.
So, you know, you look at those calls that Eric gives you every month, and you can see all those refusals. They're still going out and doing things on those refusals. We just don't get paid. So you got to factor that into it. So does each ambulance transport actually cost that much? No, but you got to factor in all the other costs, your overhead.
I was just trying to figure out what the key indicators are to compare ambulance districts with each other.
It's awful across the board. The big push on all of this GMT cost analysis and cost reporting is just what Jamie said. That's the ammo we're using with CMS mostly to get proper reimbursement for sustainability. That's why most districts have a sales tax and a property tax, to be honest. But some of them push up cost per call, but it doesn't change what we get reimbursed. It makes it look worse on paper. I think we've got that one thing that changes.
Right.
Any questions on the 2022?
Hopefully one of these years we'll have some good news.
I represent that, so you can submit that.
If there are no other questions, I take the motion to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Department of Public Safety EMS grant.
I'm going to start, and then we'll let Eric and Lauren talk about what we're going to do. So there is a funding opportunity here for a grant. It is a $20,000 match. So if we spend 40, they'll reimburse us 20. And it's pretty much for anything we need. If you look at the unallowable items are on page 66. But basically, any sort of equipment, radio equipment, wages, anything you can use for this grant.
About $20 million total in the state.
No, it's 10 million, and it's 20,000 per district, so that's 500 grants. So there's actually 10 million for fire, 10 million for EMS, 10 million for police. So it was actually 30 million, but they split it into buckets for each type of agency. So the grant application start date was November 4th. And we have to have it submitted by December 5th. And then we have to spend, the money. They want us to spend the money before June of 2023. And as you all know, that's gonna be difficult, just from the supply chain issues that we have. Even if we order something today, we can't guarantee we're gonna get it and pay for it by June. So we have,
Is it needs based or merit based or
I don't believe,
fill out the paperwork properly based?
like I said, there's 500 grants. I don't think there's 500 ambulance districts in Missouri.
Can you buy HVAC with this?
I'm sure you can, but that's not what we're. Currently, we don't need it. Could change tomorrow. You guys want to talk about what we're kind of thinking as far as what items
As far as
to apply for
equipment,
the
yeah.
grant? Yeah.
I'll start with the simplest. When we went to the power cots, which are the ones that, raise their own legs and get on the ambulance and go in on the sled. It was kind of a mismatch of what kind of cot we had, what was available, what the trucks we had at the time would accommodate. So what we ended up with is if on the side of the cot, the rails that come up, just like a hospital bed, some of them come up and they're very limiting on what we can actually girth of patients and so forth. The safety of them is questionable. They're just not very sturdy. About 4 years ago, about 4, maybe a little bit longer, Stryker came out with these, I call them wings, but they're a mod to the cots. We looked at those as a number one, kind of using the bariatric features of our cots more appropriately, because the new cots do have an increased load value on them, but it didn't change the girth. So we really like the new wings that we've got on the newer models. A lot of our older models need to be retrofitted, or we'd like to see them retrofitted. So that's one of the things. And cost per unit, I don't have.
Oh.
You've got that. Okay. I want to say it's around 3,000 per unit. Well, a lot more than I thought it would be, but
Yes.
they're nice. And like I said, they do make a difference. There are some patients that just flat out,
Okay.
those cots are not great for. So that's a retrofit times. You said you got it.
I will in just a second.
Okay. That's one of the items, times, however many costs Jamie's about telling me. Unfortunately, I don't have my notes, so I can't tell you. She brings
It's 4.
4 costs, okay. And the other.
Oh, no, wait. It is almost there.
Any questions about the costs? They're just an improvement to our existing costs.
So that's 12,000.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm trying to remember it was over under, but it's changed, yeah.
Is this a straight 50-50?
Yes.
Or is this you spend first 20 and then they spend the next 20?
We spend 40, they give us 20 back.
All right. Even if we spend 18, they'll give us 9.
I understand.
All right.
But believe me, our capital expenses we have for next year is way more than 40,000, so I think we just have to decide which items we're gonna submit for the grant.
Okay, so I was just saying, we can just spend this on stuff we were already gonna spend it on. People are asking a new thing.
It does not have to be a new thing, so, sorry, I should have highlighted that earlier, but the eligible costs may support personnel benefits, travel, training, equipment, supplies, and or contractual expenses. So
We're gonna
it's
spend
pretty,
$40,000. We have to tell them a thing.
We've
We have to-
fallen into this trap in the school district, though, where instead of making it a one-time expense and taking advantage of the grant, we start a program and then have to scramble around and find ways to pay for it after the grant runs out. So,
We
but
don't
we're
have
talking
programs,
about one-time expenses.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
It's basically $20,000 for free.
Yeah, okay.
so what, I mean, we have to, what's required is we have to have a quote or cost basis to support what we're asking for, and then the supporting documentation, as well as our EMS license, ambulance license, federal fund schedule, which we do not have because we don't have federal funds, and our audit. That's what we have to submit for this grant by December 5th.
So upgrading the equipment would do.
There's more.
There's more.
Yeah, there's more. Since the inception of PCAD, something we've been looking at getting is the proper name for this, so I'm just going to say the name brand. It's a mule. A lot of EMS and fire services, especially rural services, have these. They're a UTV or all-terrain vehicle. They're a little bit bigger, but they're not, like sporting razor devices. They're not the $50,000-$60,000. They're primarily a utility vehicle that will get into hard to reach places. So one of the reasons, I'll just give you some of the reasons we've been looking for just to justify. Number one is access to rough terrain areas. A lot of times we get people falling out of deer stands, a lot of farm accidents, we're in a rural place. So gaining access to those patients, we're wholly dependent upon maybe a fire apparatus that can show up and maybe get through the field, but their tires aren't enough for it anymore than anybody else's. So that can be an issue. Plus, none of their vehicles have the means to transport. What we're looking at is a vehicle that can do multiple duties. So the first part is the rough terrain. It's just a rough terrain vehicle. The second part is the transporting mechanism on. There's a bed that you can put on. I want to say med bed, but I think it's changed names, but that is still what everybody calls them. We've got like I said, the supporting documents for all this, going on the details, but what it is it sits in the back of the unit, allows you to transport pretty much any kind of patient, whether they're backboarded or a chest pain patient at an event or anything like that. So again, we don't have any vehicles that can go to these remote places. What we've done historically is we either have to hoof it out or we have to use a lot of resources like fire and so forth to come extricate these patients. So event standbys is also a big deal. One of the things we do out at the fairgrounds as part of our duties out there is getting around lots of crowds and tight places that ambulances can't get. And it would be very nice for any event standby. I know we've got some larger events coming next year where you have multiple sites. Basically, we logistically look at those events as a mass casualty incident. Certainly the potential for one, but we have to treat it like it is and be available in all those different spots without driving our ambulances through fields and getting stuck. Needless to say, those big ambulances do not do well in the dirt. Along with rodeos, we've got a lot of soft ground events that we're not able to get access to well. I think we'd use it a lot is basically what I'm getting at. These fire support and rehab, we work a lot of brush fires, and there again, there's no way for us to get back to where the action's going on. A lot of them must tell it push up close to the road, which they never do, it seems. So fire rehab would be something else we could do these on our longer days. Some of those brush fires last for literally the entire day. So we're out there cycling crews through. Every once in a while, we do have to take one of the firefighters to the ambulance, hopefully not transport them, but sometimes we actually have to get them at least back to the ambulance, start IV fluids and do whatever kind of other oxygen therapy they need to kind of get themselves back up to the ability to either go back in or at least keep them from having to go to the hospital. The whole point of rehab is to prevent that and maybe extend their ability to work on those scenes. Storm response is probably one of the biggest ones I've looked at. Starting with plows, there's a plow attachment on them. We have the snow blowers for the narrow, sidewalks and things like that at our stations, but we're still paying, and I'll have to get this number from Jamie, but a lot of money every time it snows. They don't just charge you once. They don't charge you per snowstorm. They charge you however many times during the storm that you need their services. So you got probably, a significant storm event. They might come out 4 or 5 times. They might put salt on it 2 times. It really adds up. Those are not cheap services. So
if you had this machine, you all would be taking care of this.
I think we can, at a minimum, take care of our civilian stations and get it from here to TT and then eventually a Western satellite station. I don't think that'd be an issue.
Does this come with the trailer?
The trailer would be extra, but we don't need much. It's basically, we're looking at, tilt trailer or something to that effect. Probably, we've got some bids on that. Of course, we have to have, like Jerry said, the documentation for all this. We've been shopping around. And that's one thing I actually wanted to bring to the board as far as if you got any lines on cheaper trailer manufacturers. They've changed in Sedalia. Parkhurst used to be the big one, and then there's ones in Lincoln and Used is also possible too.
It's like an ATV.
Yeah, it's basically, it looks like a really heavy duty golf cart. Yeah, so it's not, for jumping berms or anything, but they do have, they have a high center, clearance, they have the big tires that will go through the mud to get us into those places. There's plow winch options, which we've priced into this. I'm sorry.
John Deere Gator.
Yes, yeah, that's another, like I said,
Okay.
I don't know if there's an overall term for that exact vehicle, but I just call them
I'm just
mules.
trying to imagine what it is we're talking about.
Yeah, I just call them mules because that's the common word for this type in the EMS. So the storm response, like I said, there's that plow and winch option, which I think would be great. Certainly that's something that Roy and I and anybody else who happens to be on standby can come in and do during those events where we've had to, like I said, rely on plow services that may or may not get there quickly like we need them to. All of our trucks would be able to haul it. Yeah, we're looking at with the trailer and the unit on there, we're looking at probably around 2,200 pounds, I think is what we're. Yeah, so no issues with ton weight or getting these vehicles around. The other weather event that we have that I want to consider in this is the tornado. We get tornadoes, we get power lines down. Getting an ambulance around them is literally impossible. The last time, best example I have of this is when in Oklahoma City, they were transporting patients in the back of in the backs of trucks because the ambulances just cannot get through. If there's any debris on the ground, there's nails, there's anything sharp, you're gonna pop tires, you're gonna be out of service, out of commission. So this is something we could use that would, number one, keep our vehicles in service, or at least keep them from having to go into these high risk areas where there's rough terrain, lots of debris, fields, and so I think trailers is cheaper. Tornadoes is a significant reason we've always kind of wanted one of these. Search and rescue, we can assist on that. We don't have that much to do with it, but search and rescue teams, we're kind of limited in Pettis County as to what we have, the capabilities, the number of volunteers, the people who have the right equipment to go out there. So again, this is something that I think would help enhance, I should say, I don't want to say assist, but definitely enhance our ability to respond to those events out in remote locations throughout the county.
So this would be something we pay for with this grant.
Yeah, yes, sir. The other thing I kind of already talked about was MCI, hot zone access. If we have to get patients out in a hurry and say an active shooter situation, I don't want to sound apocryphal, but it's something we do consider and train and plan for. If we have to transport crews or patients through a system like that, it's a lot easier to take that small vehicle. It's maneuverable, it can get into tight spots. And not only that, but you don't get your ambulance shot up or get it in a situation that you can't get out of. So they're pretty heavily used. All the agencies I know that have them use them a lot. And standby events, that's the other one. Is it's a really nice thing if you got a football player on the field or something like that. You can get this space, you can extract them from that environment a lot quicker. So in the bigger picture, we sold our emergency response trailer, which was a grant that was given to another ambulance district before we ever, not ambulance district, ambulance company before we existed. We inherited it from them, but the thing was, I believe, 22 or 24 feet long, had a ridiculously massive ton weight on it. We only had one vehicle that would tow it, and that was an extended bed, extended cab monstrosity of the truck. We call it USS PCAD. So that truck is gone. It aged out. The trailer we got rid of through talking with the agency that loaned that gave it to us in the first place. We kept the essential equipment. There was about 100 backboards on there. We got rid of them because we don't use backboards. Long story short, we sold that trailer just on I believe that was a W sale, with the intent of buying another trailer. So, and what we ended up with was nothing. We never got another trailer. COVID hit, a lot of things got in the way, and we just never did it. It never got put in the budget. So we've been sitting on this, waiting on some sort of emergency vehicle, a self-driving emergency vehicle, or not self-driving, but one with a motor in it. You can get around places is a lot more useful, in my opinion, than any trailer would ever be. So The other thing we're looking at to kind of enhance this, and this isn't in the grant, but we've been looking at buying that trailer and equipping that trailer with all this stuff. This would kind of be in lieu of that, because what I'm gonna propose to the district, or to the board rather, is that we hold on to one of those older ambulances, one of the transits, and convert that into an emergency response vehicle, a special operations unit. I'm not gonna give it a name at this point because we'll want to come up with something more creative than that. But basically a special ops unit that could, number one, haul that trailer and snowplow, UTV, ATV, whatever you want to call it, around to these different places. And that vehicle could also be used, like I said, this is not a grant item. We already own it. It wouldn't cost us anything. We don't have to buy that trailer I was talking about because we already have it. Essentially, all we have to do is get a trailer hitched. Then it can be, it's got everything we already need to do those operations I was already talking about. So you've got a mass casualty response unit, self-enclosed, already paid for. There's some modifications we probably want to do to it, but it'd be a lot cheaper than going out and getting a new trailer and trying to put all the equipment that we take on. So we want to make the most out of what we already own, it wouldn't cost. And that kind of solves the problem of how to get that other vehicle around and what we could do out of it. So
this trailer you have would haul that UTV.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We
And
don't
the other
have-
thing is
They
that
don't have that.
We don't have a trailer.
Yeah.
Don't have-
We sold.
we don't
that
have
trailer.
any trailer at all. It was a van trailer, it was a big enclosed trailer. So this would be an old ambulance with basically gutted, used as a special response unit that we could keep ready supplies on and mass casualty supplies, which are a lot different than the expensive stuff we have on the ambulances. We're talking duct tape and baling wire here at this
I
point.
guess I'm a little bit confused. You're gonna gut an ambulance?
An old ambulance that we would have sold and use it as a special operations unit.
And put this gator in
And drag the gator around behind. Yes,
drag it behind.
yeah.
It won't fit in.
No, won't fit inside. But that's another thing I was talking about, PR events, training. We can use it to train our EMTs where they can simulate live scenarios. It'd be really helpful to keep it around. And honestly, I don't think we're gonna get very much at all, if any, out of the sale of those transits. They're disposable units. They're old, they're pretty beat up. We could put some cheap graphics on it, make it look nice, and I think it'd be a great PR thing for the district, as well as a functional unit that we would use. So I'm kind of mission creep here telling you about that, but they're related. So I kind of wanted to give you an idea of my overall plan for number one, how we get that unit around, and number two, how we can improve our ability to stand by.
So you
events.
tow it instead of it being in a trailer, it would be towed, but it's.
The mule would be, yeah, we'd have a tilt trailer, just a small
Oh,
open trailer for hauling it around.
Like
a
just a
long
little
trailer.
Ice.
Yeah, just a little tilt trailer you drive it up on that we can move around if we kept one of those ambulances, rather than going with some pull behind enclosed van trailer that then you're stuck right at there again, and what do you pull it around behind? It's literally got a motor in it, so we can take it anywhere. We use it for just about anything, including moving patients around for all the stuff I was talking about that we would do.
I think your light snow removal is gonna pay for it.
Yeah, the first question I asked was,
If they have to come here 4 times to do this line.
yeah, over time, it will definitely pay for itself. Everybody we know, I think Saline County has one, they've had it, we were going around 20 years. So they last, and they use it a lot up there. So I don't think it's something, the initial cost of it, and then like I said, when this grant came along, it kind of fell in our laps and it seemed like a good thing. Maybe to present that to the board to get to the district.
So the cot retrofit, it is 5, and they are right at $3,000 a piece, so it's about 15,000 for the cot retrofit. The mule with the snow blade and the patient carrier modifications is about 27,000. So with just those 2 items, we're at 41. If we add trailer on, we could be far in excess. Estimate of 5,000 is 46,000. So overall for the mule and the trailer, we're about 32,000.
And this mule is gonna have a cabin or thing on it, open.
I'll call it semi-open. We're gonna have to put, we have to put some sort of windshield on. We're gonna be out in the snowstorm, obviously.
But they make them with
Yeah,
cabins,
yeah, they
you know,
should.
which I would think you would want that.
Mhm. Yeah. And like I said, with the options we looked at right now were the bare essentials for what I've told you here today, but you can do endless stuff with them. We've got a big emergency light that stands up, kind of like the wacky waving arms, inflatable two-man things. We've got a legitimate EMA type thing that'll light up this whole neighborhood. You can haul it around on there and use it as a command center vehicle.
What's wrong with that? You need, or,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's something, like I said, we've been wanting one for a long time. And after getting rid of it, yeah, it's half price today. It seemed like a good idea to do that with all the used ambulance as well too, so. And I'll give credit to Flo Hammer. He's the one who had the idea of keeping that other ambulance around and using it for all those different activities, training, PR. And so.
And this mule, just picture it, it's a four-seater mule, but the back two seats get used up by that patient care.
Med-bed.
So where are you looking to tow that? Where?
The quote we got, I believe, was from Dick's
It's
Honda, and the med bed stuff. There's a manufacturer out there that builds them specifically.
So it's a two-seat, or it's got two seats.
Yeah.
Back folds down into part of it.
I'm
I'm trying to
Do we
find a
have some
picture
pictures of it,
of
Roy? Did you bring any of
I
that?
didn't bring any over with me, but it's basically a four-seater, and then you can extend the bed, flip the rear seat up, extend the bed, so you put the patient carrier back in the bed of the UTV. And turns into a two-seater, so it's got some versatility to it, it can get reconfigured, and uses as you want.
So is it 1,000 or 800, 900?
the med bed.
No.
Oh, the number of it?
Yeah.
There, I have it up. $4010,
That's the model number.
so $4010 4x4.
1,000. You'd want that, yeah. I'd say for sure, pretty sure.
I don't know, it says $4010 on this. Here's a picture of it
Yeah. Thanks.
without the med bed, that's just.
The med bed just looks like almost looks like
Would be real bad.
short.
Sounds like a good plan.
So I bet that's not like permanently installed either.
Yeah, that can be perfect.
So you would like a motion to approve the application for that grant? For those items. So moved. We have a second. Any further discussion?
Just to say that, like I said, the modifications, if we end up keeping that unit, if you guys approve that, we've got that factored in the budget and got modifications to it. Not much.
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
That's
Since we have no new business, I'd take a motion to go into closed session pursuant to RSM 610.021, section 1 and 9.
Right.
All in favor, and that'll be roll call.
Very nice.
Second.
Did you make the motion?
I mean.
Brown?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Berkey?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.